trying to call you and you wouldn't answer.
Excellent. No, just kidding.
There's
No,
go Open Public Meeting Act stuff he was going to do, but he hasn't. I don't think he's going to be able to do it today or tomorrow. I think it's probably going to be next week when we hear about it officially now.
Thank you, Joe.
well, we're all locked in for tonight's meeting anyway, and we are getting set up to be adroit if the rules change. All right, Tracy, you ready? Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Yelm City Council meeting of November 10th, 2020. We will call the meeting to order in our usual fashion by doing a salute to our flag. Nice touch, Grant. Thank you very much. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of personal privilege. Thank you, Grant, for putting up the Marine Corps logo. This is, of course, the 245th anniversary of the beginning of the United States Marine Corps, of which I was able to serve 5 years. So I'll be celebrating this with some of my fellow Marines after the meeting this evening. And of course, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I'll get to that as more of an announcement later. Lori, would you take the roll call, please?
Councilmember James Blair. Absent. Councilmember Molly Carmody. Absent. Councilmember EJ Curry.
Here.
Councilmember Tad Stillwell.
Here.
Councilmember Tracy Wood.
Here.
Councilmember Joe DePinto.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Kaminsky.
Here.
Mayor J.W. Foster.
Here.
Thank you.
Now, Council, I'll give it to you that your policy manual says that if they have not called prior to the start of the meeting, it is an unexcused absence. It's up to you if you want to do something different with those two missing council members.
How many missing meetings has Mr. Blair had recently?
I don't have that tally here at the moment. They have been excused. All of his missed meetings have been excused by council. Hearing no motion, we will leave them as unexcused unless they show up later, and then we'll just add them in at the time, and the minutes will reflect what time they joined the meeting. So we do have an agenda before us. Would someone like to approve that?
I move we approve tonight's agenda.
Said Council Member Tracy Wood.
Councilmember Stillwell, second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm not going to make that mistake again. I thought I hear everything, but I'm not going to make sure that I ask for nays too. So we have our agenda. We have no special presentations tonight, as the student of the month comes at the second meeting of our regular council meeting of the month. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment. I will go over to the attendees list, and I see only our regular guest here, and I'm assuming that she does not want to speak to council tonight. She just wants to watch the meeting, which is fine. So with no public comment submitted by writing or in attendance, we will move on to the consent agenda, which is simply the minutes from the previous meeting.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Said Council Member Wood, seconded by Council Member Curry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have the consent agenda. So we'll launch right into, if Heidi's ready. I know we snuck up on you here, Heidi, but if you're ready, we'll go into new business, the 2021 property tax with ad valorem.
Excuse me, Mayor Foster.
Yes.
It's a public hearing.
Oh, I didn't start the public hearing. I thought, yeah, you're right. My bad. Folks, because this is our second public hearing, I have to announce that, and we will start the public hearing on the 2020-2021 biennial budget at 6:05 PM, and let the record show that Councilmember Carmody has joined the meeting. So thank you for that reminder. And now Heidi, if you're ready, we will go ahead and enjoy your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Foster. I am trying to find the controls that will allow me to share my screen. Let's see here.
You should be able to already, because if the button's been clicked, all panelists can share their screen.
There we go. Thank you.
There we go.
Moment here. Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction. Tonight, our first public hearing is on the ad valorem, or the setting of the property taxes. It's the recommendation that you adopt ordinance number 1069, setting the amount for the regular levy of property taxes necessary for essential expenditures in the general fund for fiscal year 2021. So property tax is the third largest revenue source for the general fund, coming in at 22% on average. It supports the police, parks, community development, and administrative functions for City Hall. We have budgeted at a 1% increase, plus additional revenue from the recent annexation and estimated new construction. And then 2022 is budgeted at an increase of 1% over 2021. The bar graph here shows that how property taxes increased over the last few years since 2017. Modest increases. Washington state law requires that a public hearing be conducted to consider the increase, which is what we're doing tonight after my presentation. And the council needs to adopt the ordinance fixing the property tax levy rate, so I can deliver it and get it certified with the Thurston County Assessor's Office. The estimated rates that are presented tonight were prepared based on the preliminary values that are sent out by Thurston County. There is a final worksheet that will come out, but it's not available until the end of November, and we're not exactly sure which day it's available. And so since this is due to the county assessor by November 30th, which is the Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday, we do it based on the preliminary numbers. And that said, the final levy amount cannot be any higher than the number presented tonight. It can be lower if for some reason the property values that they sent drop, but it cannot be higher even if the property values increase. Okay, right now, the population of Yelm is estimated to be at 9,400 people from the Washington State Financial Management Office on their April 1st report. And so cities with a population of less than 10,000 are allowed to increase by 1%. Cities over 10,000, it requires a substantial needs ordinance to increase above the IPD, which this year in 2021, the IPD is 0.6%. And so when we do pass that barrier to be 10,000, then we have additional requirements. We're not there yet. So the calculation of property tax is essentially, we take last year's highest levy and we multiply that by 1%. And that turns out to be your highest lawful levy. That increase from the 1,517,000 to the 1,533,000 is an increase of just over $15,000. So this breaks down the calculation of what we can expect for our full revenue. We have last year's highest levy, plus we have the 1% increase, should you approve it. Then we have the revenue that's expected from new construction. The Thurston County estimated that the new construction value will be 11 million for this tax year. We also have the revenue that is from the annexation and revenue from a refund amount. And so you total that, and our anticipated revenue for property tax is 552,942.47, which works out to be $1.51 per $1,000 of assessed property value. If the ad valorem is adopted by you guys tonight, Yelm is expected to receive about $15.14 for every $100 paid in property tax, or about 15 cents per dollar. And so Yelm gets a relatively small share of property tax, of the total property tax that people pay. Our next steps in the budget tonight is to have the public hearing to potentially adopt the ordinance. And then I will submit it to the Thurston County before the end of November, December 8th, should there be any updates on the preliminary amount and the final levy amounts. And I have that information, I will bring it back and let you guys know what that is. So, is there any questions about the ad valorem or the property tax that I can answer at this time? Yes, Tracy?
I'm just, we talk about this pretty, I believe every budget session or
Yep.
budget period. And what I'm curious about, or what I'm hoping you can explain a little clearer, if memory serves, by raising this 1% doesn't increase our property tax as property owners here in Yelm. It is it's voting to increase our take of what the entire amount of our property tax is. Is that correct, or can you clarify for me?
Tracy, that is my understanding as well. That is my understanding as well.
So if we choose to not, just hypothetically say not take or increase that by 1%, where does that 1% that we wouldn't be increasing as far as our cut of the pie, where would that in essence end up at if it won't be increasing my property tax by us increasing that?
Well, if it's redistributed equally amongst the taxing districts, it'll be absorbed by the other taxing districts. But if you don't, the problem with not increasing it is that it has compounding effects going forward. And what do I want to say? And so it's kind of like, well, it is like interest. You know, you earn money on your interest earned. And so if we don't take the 1% that's allowed by law, then we lose out on that future amount. We can bank that, but there's always a portion of revenue that we won't collect because of that.
I understand. And I guess my concern was more so that it as memory serves, that it was in fact not raising my property taxes, just in fact claiming or raising what we're claiming from those taxes that are being collected presently.
That is my understanding, Tracy. Okay.
Councilmember DePindo, did you have a question?
No, actually, it was just a comment, but Heidi actually brought it up with the ability for the city to bank that 1% if we should so choose. I believe it's up to 3 years, up to 3%. I could be wrong, could be a little bit higher, but it's at least 3%, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, council, if there are no more questions, this is a public hearing, so we'd want to hear from
You hit the space bar, Mayor.
I'm looking at attendees to see if there are any public comments during the public hearing. There are none. And so following our course, Heidi, we want to keep the public hearing going, but do we want to vote on this ordinance now or at the end of the entire budget hearing tonight?
Now would be fine.
Now would be fine. Council, if you've seen this in your agenda, there is a proposed recommendation, and that could become in the form of a motion. Go ahead, Terry.
I motion that we authorize Mayor Foster to sign ordinance 1069, setting the ad valorem property tax for 2021.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion passes. All right, thank you, Heidi, for your work on this. I know it's a complicated formula that you have to figure out, and it's kind of rushed it through the month of November, but looks good. Tracy, yeah?
I'm just not sure that we did that in the right order and looking for some verification. Did we close the public hearing prior to doing our vote?
We did not close the public hearing. I was intending to leave the public hearing open for all of the presentations so that citizens could have questions and answers during those presentations as well.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Which means that we'll continue on with item B, which is the public hearing on that's why I get confused. The budget update. Heidi?
Okay, give me just a second. Okay, so this is technically a second public hearing of the meeting, and it is specifically to address the preliminary budget. So it's informational. There is no action required at this time. The meeting on the 27th, we really focused on revenue. Tonight's focus will be geared more towards expenditures. So this is a pie chart of the entire city and where different, and how funds are expended. You can see that capital projects this year in particular, this budget cycle rather, take up the lion's share at 51%. The general fund is at 21%, while the water is at 10% and the wastewater is at 8%. The total projection for the biennium for the entire city is 71.5 million. And I'll tell you why that's a little bit higher than usual in the upcoming slide here. If we look at the amount of change from last year's budget, last biennium budget to this biennium budget, we'll see that it is an increase of 34%. Yelm has a total of 26 different funds. And on this graph, this table, the first 4 are individual funds, and then the last 4 are grouped together by type for simplicity. So the biggest increase is in the capital projects fund. And that is due to the sewer capital improvement wastewater reclamation facility project. If you took out capital, the change to all funds would just be 5.3%. The general fund has a 10.6% increase, and that's due to a number of reasons. We have increases to costs for ongoing expenses. Employee medical benefits increased by 4% each year. There's the compounding effect of the COLAs for represented staff. There's also an 8% increase in our insurance, our property and liability coverage. There are some one-time expenditures.
There's a question, Heidi, from Councilmember DePino.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. Heidi, for those ongoing expenses and understanding that COLAs increase and benefits increase and all that, how much of that 10% would you say that accounts for?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to just throw out a number over there. I know it's a portion of it, but it's not the majority of it. And I can get you the exact number if you'd like after the meeting, but so for example, the additional police officer, the temporary police officer is in there as a one-time, and the temporary planning position, assistant planner is in there. But then there were some other corrections. I don't know if you remember back to the budget amendment that we did in November of last year, but the park salaries and benefits were under budgeted significantly. And so that plays a big role. There are also custodial disbursements that were not accounted for, which also play a large role. And the RMSA insurance wasn't included in the original 1920 document. And so really that's the bulk of the increase of the 10%. I don't know exactly how much the wages represent specifically, but I could figure that out for you. It's not the majority.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. It would be helpful for just for me to know that, like,
Okay.
year to year what the ongoing costs are, if it's 2% of our annual budget or 1% or whatever it might be. It's helpful going forward. So thank you.
Yeah, wages are the biggest expense by far, and benefits. And so even more than, if we gave everybody a 1% COLA, it has compounding, but a bigger increase rather was the employee medical that went up 4%. And so that would overshadow even the COLAs.
Hey Heidi, I have a question too.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Mary.
this is these increases, the COLA and the medical and all this other stuff, are those just for administrative, or is it across the board for all the staff? So like the police and the public works are these costs for those folks too?
It is across the board for all staff, as budgeted. They're still working on formula of finalizing any contracts, so they're still in some negotiations, and so we may have to come back to you with a different number, but we have anticipated a 1% increase.
Okay, thanks.
We have to come back to you with a different number. And then, okay, so here is the general fund revenue expenses that I presented at the last meeting. Per Joe's request, I added the actual numbers in here so you can see visually, and you can also do some math if you would like to see how the trends have varied. In 2018, that was a spike due to setting up and expenses due to setting up the ER&R funds. And the ER&R funds, they are basically the internal service funds for equipment repair and for IT services. And then in 2020, we actually had less spending than we did in revenue by about $200,000. And that was because we were conservative in our spending due to the uncertainties of COVID. The 2021 budget, it looks like there's a spike in expenditures, but really those are the one-time expenditures, and then it balances itself back out in 2022. Though going forward, we'll have to budget carefully as expenditures do tend to outpace revenue.
Question from Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. Heidi, is that 2020, the $6.8 million in anticipated expenses, is that actual up to now, or is that anticipated for the whole year?
That's anticipated for the whole year.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the graph that demonstrates how our fund balances have been declining or not declining, but how they have trended in comparison to the revenue expenses. Our projected fund balance for the end of this year and the beginning of next year is 1.3 million. And then projected for the end of 2022, it's 1.1 million, which is a decrease, but it is okay in the sense that we are meeting our minimum balance for unreserved cash. And so we want to keep at least 15% in there, and that is right at 15%. So we are within our budgeted policies. Special revenue funds, they're basically special purpose funds. So when we receive money for a specific reason, we need to track it in a specific fund. For example, the street operating fund is a special revenue fund. We get revenues that need to be spent only on street in addition to support from the general fund. This fund has changed. It has increased by 16,000, and this is mainly due to an accurate reflection of the distribution of staff across the public works. When Cody came on, he looked at staff and he looked at their actual job duties and redistributed their positions based on what they're actually doing and what needs to be done. In the arterial street fund, it decreased $65,000 because there was a planning study that was budgeted in 2019, but that is not included in the current budget. The tourism promotion fund, that is a fund where we get tax money from hotel revenue, and that money is to be used only for promotion of our area. And there were no changes to the budgeted expenditures in that fund. The school resource officer, in 2021, revenue and associated expenditures are reduced due to COVID, but we expect it to return to normal in 2022. Fingers crossed. Normal by then. Our utility funds are enterprise funds, meaning that they need to be self-supporting. So revenue from those funds can only be used to support the activities of those funds. The water fund expenditures are 28.1% more than the prior budget, and this is due to a transfer from water to the water capital fund for the water facilities building. Excluding that transfer, the change drops to just 1.7%. The sewer utility fund has an operating decrease of actual 6%, and that is due to anticipated savings with the facility maintenance and the septic transport in anticipation of the new wastewater reclamation facility. It also experienced some savings from redistributing the public work duties appropriately across funds. Stormwater has decreased by 19.8%. Last year or last budget period, there was a transfer to the road and street fund that was not needed. There are no capital projects with a storm component in 2021 for 21 and 22. Our capital improvement funds, that's where we'll see a lot of our one-time and bigger expenses. For the municipal building fund, we have some projects that are new. For the 21-22 budget, we have the Yelm Prairie Trail, the Veterans Memorial, Dog Park Reclamation Facility Access, and City Beautification. Overall, the budgeted expenditures in that fund decreased by $420,000 roughly in the next budget cycle. The Street Capital Improvement Fund also decreased by $932,000. Primarily it reflects just the remaining costs of completing the Mossman and the Cochrane Park projects. The Cochrane Park Path project. Water Capital Improvement Fund increased by $4.7 million due to water main improvements, downtown upgrades, the Southeast Reservoir, and the water facilities building. The sewer capital, this is where we saw the biggest amount of increase, and the total increase in that fund was 21 million. Of that, there's an estimated 26.8 for the wastewater reclamation facility, and then the addition was offset by expenditures being lower for completing the engineering and the Cochran Park project. So our path forward to adopting the biannual budget is on Thursday. We have a finance committee meeting on that. During that finance committee meeting, we will be reviewing and discussing the council budget request. We'll review a summary of changes that we have developed that will help us track the changes and actually see the impact to the fund balances. And then we have October's financials, and we have our routine review and adjustment for our current budget period. November 24th, we have our routine review before the full board. And then we also have our last of 2 or 3 public hearings on the preliminary budget.
Excuse me, Heidi, hold on, the 14th is a Saturday, is that correct?
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, the 12th. The 12th.
12th?
Yes, unless you want to dedicate your Saturday to it, Terry.
No, thank you.
Thank you for noticing that. Making sure you're paying attention.
Okay, wait, what time is that? 3?
It's at 3.
3,
3
okay.
on Thursday. And I'll be sending out the agenda either later tonight or tomorrow in the morning. And so since we are going to be bringing the change summary before the council on the 24th, I took off the adoption of the final budget for that day and just left it on December 8th. So we'll have the change summary, we'll have the public hearing, and then we'll have the current budget review and adjustment on the 24th. December 1st, during the study sessions, we could have deliberations if we need continued discussion on matters. And then hopefully we can adopt the budget on December 8th. Are there any questions? Okay.
So I will add, council, if you have any further recommendations for changes, additions, deletions to the budget, please submit them in the manner that we've asked you to, so that they can come before the Finance Committee on Thursday for financial analysis and vetting to make sure we can do those or not. And if not, it gives us time to do a written response back to you on how this will or won't work. We can then bring that all forward to this the next council meeting and the next public hearing for further discussion by council. I would also caution you, a late breaking email that I received tonight about an emailed proposed budget to council members. Strongly caution you to not engage in a process of communication outside that which is dictated by law. The Open Public Meetings Act requires us to have open public meetings and public discussions and public hearings, and not rolling meetings by email or text or other processes outside of this process. So please get those recommendations in so that we can follow the process and then engage in the discussion the way we're supposed to. Councilmember DePietro? Thank
you, Mayor. Could you please clarify, are we not allowed to have one-on-one meetings or with other council members regarding proposals and anything such as the budget?
Of course, you're allowed to have conversations with each other about things, but when you initiate a group message to all council members and then ask them to engage in discussion back with you or with other council members, that creates a rolling meeting, which is clearly a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Just to be clear, I didn't do that. I believe you're referring to me, unless there's another council member that put out another budget amendment. I had emailed individual council members, not a group email as you suggest.
Yeah, you've received an email about this. All of you have received an email about this from back in September from City Administrator Graham, clearly expressing the intent of the Open Public Meetings Act. And it's when you have initiated that conversation and then continue that in ones or twos or threes and back and forth, that's where we start getting into trouble with the OPMA. You can certainly talk to somebody about an element of, any ordinance that's coming up. But when you start engaging 3 or 4 people in the council with these cross discussions, it violates the OPMA. So I would just caution you all to not do that, and bring it back to the process you've identified and adopted, to have the Finance Committee take a look at these recommendations. We can give you financial analysis and bring it forward to you for more discussion at your next meeting, which is also a public hearing. So we're all completely transparent about the process that we're using to develop this budget.
My apologies, Mayor. I was simply trying to follow the same procedures you did when you sent out your email to all of council regarding the initial budget, your proposed budget. My apologies.
Heidi, do you have any further presentation for this part?
Nope, for this part, nope. I believe Grant's up next, and then you guys get to hear from me again momentarily.
All right, Grant, you ready to do your presentation?
After the public hearing part.
Okay, 6 of 1, half a dozen. So we will go ahead and close the public hearing on the budget. At this point, we'll be opening that back up again at the next council meeting. And now we'll go into the presentations on community development and IT, and then finance department.
Mayor, I just wanted to make sure there was still nobody who wanted to testify. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Going to give the overview of what we've been doing the last couple of years, what we're going to do in the next couple of years, and some of the successes that we've had in both the community development department and the technology department. Starting one at a time. Excuse me just a minute. Let me start my video. So starting with community development, what we're going to go over is accomplishments, goals for the upcoming biennium, the big rocks that we're facing, some challenges, and then the plan to overcome those challenges and deal with our big rocks. So first up, our accomplishments, and I tell you, I just can't say enough about the group that we've got in community development. Looking back, it's always fun doing these presentations because you realize, as you often don't in the midst of things, how much we really have gotten done and really good stuff. So we, and probably the biggest good thing that we did was completed the downtown corridor strategy, which identifies a series of potential investments in our downtown to ensure that it's vibrant, the center of the community, just really the heart of Yelm moving forward as it has been in the past. So that was both a fun project and an exciting one for the future of Yelm. We went through a lean process with all the city's permit processes, including all the land use and building permits. As we moved over to the new city hall, we needed to do that with some of the organizational changes, but also just it's good practice to do that routinely in order to make sure that there's no gotchas and hiccups in the process. That was really successful. We did change some procedures but more to the point, we implemented a lot of technological advances and are now in CDD 100% paperless as far as review and issuance of permits. Big thing, we got our water rights mitigation plan submitted to the Department of Ecology. That was a ton of work to get to this point. It's going to be a lot more moving forward. It's an ongoing rock, but making that application was a huge step in the right direction. Went through and created and adopted the affordable housing tax credit for Yelm to give us the ability in the future to collect some money that's already been being collected and goes to the state, or previously went to the state. Now it'll come to us for affordable housing uses. We abandoned the Prairie Line Trail and applied to extend the trail across the Nisqually River. Still haven't heard back from RCO officially on our application yet, but again, we're feeling very confident that that will be will be funded and have a plan for that as part of this budget biennium. Significantly, we obtained money for the preparation of a habitat conservation plan to deal with the create a system in place that developers can use collectively rather than individually to mitigate for the pocket gopher, which is a federally endangered species. And finally, we got the consultants on board for the Yelm Education and Community Services Center. That's on that. Those are the big things. Just the underlying thing is keeping the permits moving, keeping answering all the questions at the counter, dealing with people's dreams and trying to get them to where they can be successful. Just the background noise that we always have to deal with and maintain levels of service. So our goals for the year, and there is someone who knows a thing or two about scoring a goal, Jordan Morris from our own Seattle Sounders. We're going to update the transportation plan in conjunction with the Public Works Department. That's required to be updated every so often, so we maintain our capital improvement list and know what the best bang for our buck is as far as ongoing improvements to the transportation system. We're going to maintain our levels of service. We're going to start the comprehensive plan periodic update a little early. We're going to start in 2022. Normally we'd begin that process in 2023, but we really want to do more than just look at the required things that we have to do through that process. And again, every 6 years, and that's been jiggered around a little bit by the legislature in the past decade, but typically every 6 years we have to do a major check-in with our comprehensive plan to make sure that it's consistent with any new state laws and any new court cases that give us direction. But we also want to go further this time and take a look at what the pandemic and the economy and just what life looks like as we come out of this this crazy year, to see if the new life, the new normal, is different and we need to address that somehow in our long-term plans and the comprehensive plan and then through the development regulations. So we just don't know at this point. I think we will have a better sense towards the end of the biennium. And then finally, we want to look at the size and location of the UGA as it relates to pocket gopher habitat. A significant portion of the UGA is that habitat. And if it may make more sense, that's what we need to look at, make more sense to reduce the size of the UGA to lower the impact to the pocket gopher and intensify the development within the existing city limits or a smaller urban growth area. So just something we need to take a look at as we move through all these new things. And then the last big thing we're looking at, just kind of goal-wise, is preparing for organizational changes and continuity of service. My personal planning horizon is now about 2 years to retirement, so we need to be prepared for the change and make sure that everything continues on. You're muted, JW, so it doesn't matter what you think.
That's unauthorized timeline.
So in context, I just, the things in Yelm really got cooking back in 2002 when I got here. So that's always, I like to take it back to that time period because it's been a wild ride. Back in 2002, we had a population of about 3,800 people, where, as Heidi indicated, in 2020, we were at 9,400. And my guess is we're actually a little bit higher than that. Historically, the census increases beyond the OFM projections quite a bit. So I think there's going to be a big jump there. We've been adding housing units that support that growth, and you can see the trend line on the number of housing starts through that period. And then since Chief put together a staffing graph versus population, this is not the same thing, but I enjoy it. There's our staffing line, which was 5 when I got here and 5 today. But we've been able to maintain levels of service through those years by adding some staff during the highest, the first boom, but also through the efforts of my folks, um, and historical, Gary Carlson, John Rowland, um, Jim Gibson, and then the existing staff. Tammy's been here the whole time, in willing to take on extra things, work extra efficiently to maintain levels of service through those years, and then coupled with the technology team, which we'll talk about in a bit, that gives us the tools we need to have everything at our fingertips. Now, in a little
Grant?
bit, yes.
Excuse me for interrupting. We've had a hand up from Councilmember Carmody and then a question from Councilmember DePino as well.
Yeah, can I get through the slide and then I just had a little more to talk about on this slide.
Please.
Which is not to say, and you'll see later in the slide deck, which is not to say that this can be maintained in the future. We're getting real busy right now. Tammy's got about 16 or 17 land use projects on our desk. The guys are dealing with the middle school, single family dwelling, continuing, and as we fill in the last residential lots. So we are at a breaking point, which I did address in my budget request, and we'll get to in a little bit. So thank you. So who was up?
Oh, Molly?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it looks to me like you guys definitely need some more staff, at least one more staff member, because that's a crazy growth curve there. And there's only so much that technology can do, you know. And I know that you guys are really super duper busy. I see that you're super duper busy. You know, I would definitely support an additional staff member for you guys. The other question is, you kind of slid through you slipped in a sentence there about changing our UGA. And I was wondering what that would entail and what would that look like? I mean, would we increase it or decrease it or increase or, you know, change the zoning in that? What does that mean?
So to back up just a little bit, we actually we're required by law to look at our UGA size once every 10 years, in cooperation with the county. It's ultimately their decision on where to draw the line. But I'm thinking that we need to take a look at potentially reducing the size of the urban growth area. If that makes sense, and that's why I'm just throwing it out there, because much of the pocket gopher habitat, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if we have to mitigate for development within the city, I think it was about 1,000 acres affected. If we add the county, it like triples it or quadruples it. So it may not be cost effective for the city long term to include a larger UGA. Along with that is we've been developing in a pattern that's more dense than we anticipated when we first adopted the plan, which is a good thing. That's what the GMA is all about. So we'll have to, and this is part of that normal review process, is taking a look at the supply and the future demand to make sure those equal each other in the size of the UGA. And the county's just or not the county, first TRPC is just beginning their buildable lands process, which is happening now in order to help us have those conversations in 2 or 3 years. Is that?
Thanks. Yeah, it does. Thank you. Can I ask a really quick follow-up question on that? Okay. I think I read somewhere once upon a time, and if I'm wrong, you know, let me know, that cities can trade UGA space. So like if Seattle needs more UGA, they can essentially swap with us, like a carbon swap. Is that a real thing, or did I just imagine that somewhere along the line?
You might have in the Puget Sound Regional Council planning area, which we're not part of, we're separate. I do believe that they have kind of an aggregate UGA goal that they look at holistically. We don't do that in Thurston County. TRPC says this is what your population growth is going to be over the next 20 years, plan for it. But having said that, that was one of our arguments many years ago. Our joint plans altogether, we were appealed on our comp plans because of the size of the UGA. And that was one of the arguments that all the cities in the county made, is that if you look at all of our UGAs together, we're not oversized. So, and that won the day, but no, there's no hard and fast rule that you can trade UGA areas.
Councilmember DePino?
Thank you, Mayor. Grant, is that 5 and then it goes up to 8 and then down to 5 again, 6, and currently it's at 5. Is that first of all full-time employees in community development?
Yes.
And then secondly, is it anticipated to stay at 5 during the next few years under the mayor's proposed budget?
What I requested was an assistant planner, a regular position. What's proposed in the mayor's budget is a assistant planner as a project position, a 3-year project position, in order to help us through the HCP. I can tell you that we would not be, and I'll get to this in a minute in detail, but we would not be able to accomplish the HCP without additional internal support. I need that support long term, but just like the chief said the other day, this is what we can accomplish with the budget constraints that we've got, and we'll do it. But so it's kind of a dual request. I mean, what I put in for was a regular position. What's in the proposal is a project position, and I'm really happy about that.
So as far as this graph goes, would that go up to 6 then full-time employees or
Yes.
FTEs or?
With the caveat that one would be a project position. Yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and Councilmember DePinto, I put this slide together based on your comment back at the previous presentation about all the apartment units going in, being able to support long-term revenue, and that it was a great observation. But I really wanted to put some relations behind it, some relationship to the fact, because it's a common misconception that residential growth pays for itself. In fact, it doesn't in this state. It's we live off real estate or sales tax primarily. So to generate $100,000 to the general fund, we'd need to have in place 25 additional apartment buildings of 20 units each. That would generate $100,000 in additional property tax revenue annually to the city. Now, as Heidi showed earlier, it generates a lot more property tax than that, but we only get a small percentage of the overall property tax. By the same metric, we'd need about 450 single-family dwellings based on their average value in town right now. We'd need to, and these are all ORs, and in reality, of course, it's mix and match because people shop locally and, residents do increase sales tax, but I couldn't do all the variables on that in a chart that we could understand. Or we could increase retail sales as a whole in the city by just under $12 million. And to put that in context, a box store like Lowe's or Home Depot can generate anywhere from $20 to $30 million in taxable retail sales. A restaurant, a sit-down restaurant can be between $1 to $2 million in taxable sales. So that's really where the opportunity is to grow a sustainable budget, is in the business activities, not necessarily the houses. The houses are great, they're needed in order to support retail sales and support businesses coming in, but it's not that they really don't pay for themselves in the long run. And then finally, for our B&O tax, which is another of our bigger fund revenues, the businesses in town would have to generate $100 million in additional gross revenue to equal $100,000 to the city.
I think Joe has a question for you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just to kind of go off of what you're saying, I would 100% would love to see more intimate, a bigger economy in Yelm. I'd love to see a Costco in Yelm or some sort of store that, like you said, can get us that additional revenue that would kind of offset the cost of the infrastructure, whatever projects we need. And I would love to see that more so than a lot more houses and developments and stuff. But such is life.
The one follows the other typically. You know, you need to develop the rooftops in order to support the retail.
Grant, I don't like to interrupt your presentations because they're so great, but based on that graph, you also have to remember, folks, that this isn't always a forward moving target, that sometimes businesses close and industries shut down, and we walk a very fine line of revenues as it is. If you close one of those large retail outlets, if they move out of town, if our one big industry decided to move out of town, they take their sales tax, their business tax, and their jobs with them, and suddenly our expenditures plow right, or our revenues plow right through the floor of our expenditures. So we have to keep an eye on all of that, and when we look to the future.
So that we've got some ongoing big rocks that we're still dealing with and we'll deal with through the biennium. The first is our water rights application. As I alluded to earlier, we got our draft mitigation plan into the Department of Ecology for review. That's been submitted. They're starting to review it. They briefed the Joint Legislative Task Force today about the process and the progress. There's one piece that's still missing that I'm working on putting together, and that's a financial guarantee monitoring and contingency plan. So part of our mitigation, out-of-kind mitigation, we have to show ecology that we've financially guaranteed those mitigation efforts, that we're going to be monitoring them ongoing, and that's the whole purpose of the pilot project, of course, is to be able to show that this kind of thing works for the watershed as a whole, and that we have a contingency if something fails. So that is a big work product that I'm working on right now. We'll also look to implement the downtown plan, and we'll look at low-hanging fruit. Like I'll be working with Cody and his team to see what we can do in the alley and just minor like sidewalk improvements and things with existing labor forces and resources to start implementing the plan. And we'll also be on the lookout for funding, as always. If there's a funding opportunity for a street project that fits with one of the street projects we've got in there, we'll be all over it. And finally, the Education and Innovation Center is ongoing. We've started the stakeholder interview process. We'll be beginning the public review process probably in January with a virtual, hybrid, or in-person open house, depending on where we're at with the world. And then ultimately, you know, towards the in the middle of summer, into summer, we'll be done with that project and have before the council a conceptual design and cost estimate. Here's the boulder that we're pushing up the hill. It's the habitat conservation plan, and the tying back to the funding source slide. This will be the thing that impacts our future for a long time, and it's the reason that the mayor's proposed a significant investment of our one-time monies into this project. 22% of the developable property in the city's prime go for habitat. As you can see from the map there, virtually all of the existing city limits outside the Thurston Highlands to Homaterra area is high or medium gopher impact area. What that means is technically anything that goes in there has a presence of gophers would need to go through the HCP process, whether we do it or the developer does it. Without an area-wide HCP, which is what we're working on, then in fact, individual property owners would be on their own dealing with U.S. fish and would have to develop a local, individual, personal HCP which sounds like an option, but US Fish is not prioritizing those. Their push, of course, is to get the county and the cities to do the area wide so they can deal with it. US Fish can deal with it on a more holistic level than individual properties. So they're not prioritizing those, and we're understanding from US Fish that they could be as far as 10 years out process should someone submit. And finally, there are current projects impacted by gophers. I think the most visible one is the new gun shop by Grove Road, where the old Fit Stop used to be. Their plans, and they came in with a pre-submission meeting, so we went over this with them, is they want to do a long-range shooting range out there, which would be a great regional activity that would generate a lot of revenue for the city from events that draw from all over the state. Unfortunately, everything outside the existing pad where the old lumber store used to be is gopher habitat, and there's gophers there. So they're not able to proceed until somebody does an HCP. We're hoping that we can get through in 3 years as a area wide. Again, they'd be looking at, if they did their own, hundreds of thousands of dollars and about a 10-year horizon at the best. So it's important that we get this done so that we can continue the generation of and creation of community. Because we're going to be at a standstill if.
Grant.
Yeah.
This sounds like I'm not trying to be funny, but after all these years of protection of the gopher, will we one day be able to say, they're no longer in danger, just throw out all the plants? I mean, do they actually count the gophers and keep track of everything? Like, I'm seriously asking.
I'm not gonna.
I'd like to jump in on that, Grant. I'll answer that.
Okay.
Terry, yeah, absolutely. That's the whole goal of protecting any species, is to try to give them an opportunity to regain populations that are self-sustainable. And the biggest example we have in this country is the bald eagle, our national symbol. In the 70s, it was on the verge of extinction, and because of these rules and protections, it's now again a proud emblem and of great numbers. So that's the goal. And yeah, at one point you can actually delist a species on that list, and then then it turns to the next species switch. But the idea is, if you protect this habitat, it's not just for the pocket gopher, it's also for the Taylor's checkered spot butterfly and the horned larkspur and a number of others that are on the verge of being listed. It's going to be in our future for quite a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank
you.
So I
Thank you, Mayor. Just continuing on that topic, I think Councilmember Kaminsky, I mean, it is an important topic, and especially relating to the habitat conservation plan. Mayor, do you know how they count these gophers, or how? I think that's kind of what Councilmember Kaminsky was kind of alluding to. How do they count these gophers? How do they know if they're increasing in numbers or decreasing in numbers?
So I was actually going to get to that along with, because I was going to raise the bald eagle as the preeminent example.
Go for it, Grant.
Something delisted, but part of and this will be part of the habitat conservation plan, is it'll be part of that plan to monitor the species here locally, the ones we're doing, and report back to US Fish. So there will be a monitoring and a reporting component of whatever we come up with through the HCP. Very similar to the what I'm putting together for the water rights.
But how do they do that? Or do you know? Like, how do they put trackers on gophers? And
well, I think it's more looking at the populations within the areas that would be set aside for them, to see how they're doing as a whole.
But how do they find them? How do they know that they're there?
Count holes is or mounds.
Okay.
So we actually have a report from the person who's helped us crafting our HCP that you could read. It gives you great detail. The county also has a lot of information on this. They do have experts who've made it their career to go out onto these properties, and they can demonstrate trending on are the soils amenable to that particular species? Is there evidence that they were there before or are there now? They have a fairly sophisticated and way of tracking these, and it's verifiable by scientific methods. So it's pretty well respected in the science world.
And I would point you to the county's draft plan on their website that does go over kind of that monitoring program and reporting program that they've proposed.
Tracy?
Just a curiosity, you mentioned the endangered species and the bald eagle. I'm curious what when they took the bald eagle off the endangered species list in 2007, what did that actually change as far as how bald eagles are dealt with in the United States? Do you know?
I don't.
I can't tell you. I know that there's still a protected species, but not endangered. I'm going to just go out on a limb here. Thank you very much, like an Airy, and say that if you were trying to build on your property and there was eagle habitat, back in the day, you wouldn't have been able to do that. Today you would, because it would be easier for the eagles to relocate. So that's the kind of thing that you can get from delisting.
All right. So kind of further talking about the habitat conservation plan, the cost is $1.2 million. It's a 3-year project. That was part of the grant application that we made to US Fish. We laid out a scope of work. We've refined that since the money's been allocated by the federal government. The state has it, and we're working with them to select a consultant and move forward. So of the 1.2, 900,000 is a grant from US Fish. We're responsible for 300,000 as the local match. That's over 3 years, and in-kind contributions do count. So we'll be able to bill my time and Tammy's time to that through the process. The plan is to use general fund monies available for one-time expenses. So for the match part, we're proposing, the mayor's budget proposes $200,000 in the biennium for 2 of the 3 years, and then hire a limited term assistant planner for the 3 years. The total cost of compensation for that would be $189,000 for this biennium. And again, that's a need for the department, period. We would fail at preparing a habitat conservation plan without it. Just given trying to maintain levels of service as things get busier again, and even keep up. There's no way we.
Grant?
Yes.
Would you expound a little bit on how this is not completely lost money, where this isn't a gift of public funds to developers, that they would be repaying the HCP in part as they go to develop those rather than doing it themselves?
Well, yeah, it's so at the end of the project, what we'll have is a mitigation package that developers can buy into to allow them to have an incidental take of gophers on their developable piece of property, but they'll be paying into the mitigation fund to sustain that and provide for the actual mitigation. So it's putting together a system in place for the development community to fund it long term in order to maintain that protection, the protected area. Did that help?
Thank you. And would you do us one more favor and pull your mic in just a little bit closer, please?
Yes. And I'll talk louder. So the other big rock that we're still waiting for final confirmation, but we're feeling good about from the RCO is the Yelm Prairie Line Trail expansion. when we get the money, the first thing we'll need to do is go out for a request for proposal for design. We'll do the design and the review with all our partners, go out for bids, and then manage the construction project, and finally be responsible for the accounting and close out of the project. So we'll probably have Derek do most of that. He's looking forward to the challenge, but it is going to be a big rock in time and effort on his part. Again, this is contingent upon getting the RCO grant, which we do feel really good about at this point. So the cost of that construction, this is to extend the trail over the bridge into Pierce County, just into Pierce County, like 1 inch into Pierce County. The total cost is about 1.5 million. We've asked for 1.2 million from the RCO, Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office. The local match would be 300,000, and that's a 20% match, and that's actually really good. Back when we applied for this project the first time, I think in 2017 or 2017, we were responsible for a 50% match, but because of our economic position in the region, our general area right now, we qualify for a lower match rate. And so that's a substantial improvement. The plan for this is to use real estate excise tax revenue to fund the local match. REIT funding is based on home sales. The city gets a percentage of the excise tax when you close a piece of property. It's been a fairly stable revenue source for us. Based on the economic forecast on housing right now, I expect it to actually do really well. I'm going to say I believe that we're estimating, and Heidi can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're estimating just over $600,000 in revenue over the biennium. So we dedicate 300,000 to that to this project. REIT can only be used on capital projects, and actually a very limited list of capital improvement projects, one of which is the improvement and acquisition improvement of parks. So this does fit within that category. And then finally, there is your community development department with and I've kind of highlighted here the fact we did ask for a regular position for assistant planner. What this proposed budget includes is the project position for 3 years. But that, there's actually people, those aren't just positions, and they're people that I'm proud to work with, and really it's a good team. Chris Vaccaro is our building official, Stephen Scott's our building inspector, Derek is our rock star civil review engineer, Tammy is the incredible planner that can. She is squirting out projects right now, right and left. She's keeping things moving to the point that I'm a little bit afraid I might have to do a project review in the near future, and I think she doesn't want that because I'll probably screw it up. And then we'll find the perfect person for the new position. Any questions on that side of the house? Okay, moving right into the technology folks. Excuse me, the accomplishments, I had to do a bunch of tabs here because they rocked it over the past biennium. I noted before that CDD is 100% digital. That's in large part to the support from the technology team. They launched and improved all of our digital permitting and forms, so everything's online now or at a kiosk at the front counter. And that includes not just CDD, but they've been supporting finance and the executive department in doing the same thing. So now we've got a kind of an automated council agenda preparation, and B&O tax reporting is all online, and you can submit your forms all online. They replaced a bunch of desktop and tablet computers, which is the purpose of that technology in our fund is to keep to replace the machinery when it's due in a very systemized and routine fashion, so we don't wind up spending a lot of time trying to keep people up to speed and efficient with super old equipment. They centralize the management of all the city cell phone accounts that used to be managed by different departments individually. Through that process, we're saving $1,600 a month by doing that. They implemented a key card security system in City Hall, redesigned the city network to utilize VLANs. And why that's in, I'm going to bore the hell out of you. I know you don't want to hear this stuff, but I'm going to do it anyway. The reason that's important is it's best practice to separate network traffic, different types of network traffic. So now all the phones are separate from all the data. We've been able to create a separate guest network with the Wi-Fi. So people who walk into City Hall have access to Wi-Fi, but they're completely separate from any city network that we have data going across. It allows us to secure the Public Works SCADA system from the network or outside world. And most importantly, I guess it allows us to expand the network indefinitely. We won't be running out of IP addresses and things when things are conflicting. So that was a huge project that really sets the stage for a very stable long-term network infrastructure. We went away from individual servers to virtual servers. So now we have 3 boxes that run 12 different servers for different things. And we added some, a DIS server, a remote desktop server, and that was directly related to the COVID response. So now I can get into a virtual server from my house and do everything that I need to do from home, as all the city employees can do now. They did a reverse proxy server and included that, which is a security measure, and updated their management server, which is what they live in to manage all the other stuff. Really, the big thing to me is they've maintained a very stable network environment and service levels throughout all this. So this is something that's kind of silly, but I think the chief would support me on it. They standardized the technology mounting system in all the police vehicles. We've got upwards of 14 patrol cars, plus the chiefs, the detective, and reserve cars. In the past, because we didn't have the resources to research and do things in central services, we had a ton of different systems deployed. So just by standardizing on something that works for everybody, they were able to increase the range of the vehicles by having external antennas. They don't have to swap out or buy a certain type of laptop to fit it. It's just the kind of thing that it sounds silly, but it makes a huge difference in maintaining and efficiencies moving forward with providing service to the patrol officers. They also, and Todd did mention, they installed voice command software, Dragon Naturally Speaking, for all the patrol officers, so they can write the reports with a little microphone. They can also use that hands-free microphone to connect to their sector and the other resources that they have, so they can run plates just by talking to their computer in the car. They replaced or upgraded 16 mobile computer terminals, or MCTs, for the department. That's significant because of the schedules those guys maintain. That's a lot of upgrades for them, just from trying to track people down and make sure it's seamless for the officers. They're working on connecting the Public Works facility and the Public Safety building, where our computer server room is, with fiber, which will increase speeds and reliability significantly between those two systems. Right now, we've got a radio connection between those two. They added security cameras to City Hall, the splash pad, and the upgraded playground. They deployed new wireless access points throughout all the city facilities. That's part of that, being able to provide a guest network to people in the community center and people who are using our facilities that's safe and secure from the city network. The implemented video, and Sonia talked about this, video arraignment with the Nisqually jail. That's been a long time coming, and it was a fun project, but it just increases efficiencies in so many areas by not having to have the officers run back and forth to the jail, bringing people in to see Judge Meyer. So it's really slick, and yeah, it was fun. I'm geeking out. They also deployed at the same time we did a cloud-based file sharing and signature authorization system. So if you're the defense attorney sitting with your client in the Nisqually jail, you can see and sign all the paperwork digitally, so there's no faxing things back and forth, and then it gets stored in electronically in Laserfish. And Sonia has done a great job of modernizing the court system and bringing them up to kind of paperless standards. And we're not there yet. I think Molly will back me up on this, that the legal community seems to go into paperless kicking and screaming, but we're bringing them along. And also they implemented at the same time remote court sessions so that we can continue to have court during the COVID not being able to meet in public. And Sonia reported this morning that that's going really well, and they're getting very few people actually coming in person, although that is an option for people in the court. So that is providing a good service. They participated in a citywide review process that I alluded to earlier, and I just want to say their feedback on that was really because computer programming and logic is very process heavy. So they were very, very valuable in looking at even our permitting systems or how the utility bills flow. That was a valuable resource, just the way that they think about that and are able to explain things to people. They implemented the new city council chambers that someday we'll get back into, and redid Chief Stansel's training room into a very modern facility. We were talking about it this morning at staff meeting. That building, it's hard to believe, is over 10 years old. So there was actually a lot of technical upgrades that went into the training room. The biggest accomplishment, in my opinion, with those guys was their flexibility and responsiveness in getting us back to work after the shutdown. Very effectively working remotely in most cases. I can't say enough about the efforts that they went through to get us to that point very quickly. All of those accomplishments have ripple effects throughout the city. As a service organization, everything they do benefits every department and employee in the city when they do an upgrade. It's all about increasing efficiencies, benefiting public transparency, increasing the communication to the public of what we do, and adding convenience and service delivery. So their goals for the upcoming biennium is to finish the deployment of the VLAN infrastructure and a bunch of new switches to support those, completing the fiber link between Public Works and Public Safety Building, continuing to improve the content and services to the public. We want to add cameras at Longmire Park, the Water Reclamation Facility, and Public Works. And we also want to extend our key card system to Public Works and the Water Reclamation Facility. I don't know if you've ever seen one of the sewer guys, but I don't know how their pants stay up with the size of the key ring that they have to carry around with them to get into all the things. So we're going to try to get them down to one key card. And then again, we're updating the key card system at Public Safety Building because it's over 10 years old now. So it'll be compatible with the rest of the system. The Southwest Yelm 1A control building needs some tender loving care to bring it up to current networking standards and make it a reliable connection back to the SCADA system. We'll be working with Cody's team to improve the meter reading process on the new Mueller meters. The most important thing, according to Jason, is securing an IPv6 address for the city of Yelm. I'll just leave it at that. We're looking at changing phone systems. We've got the software already. We just need to implement it to a system called 3CX. The main benefit of that is it supports soft phones. So we won't need to have telephones at our desk anymore. We can have computer headsets. We can have it on our cell phones, our city cell phones. We can basically have a virtual desk wherever we are, virtual phone. That's all integrated. So like when we forward a call to our city cell phone, that's now out of the system and we can't transfer it back to the right person or send it to the mayor because it's a praise of one of our employees or anything. This will allow us to be even more remote and more mobile and continue to work towards a virtualized client environment. And yes, Mayor, that is Flippy. So there's all that in a compact two-person, and I drag them down office. And I have to say here that the next slide is going to, again, personalize it, but Aaron, when he first, towards his first time with the city, we were talking in their office about his experiences in the military and with systems and processes and leaning things up. And it turned into also a discussion about diversity. And he made the unfortunate joke that he identified as an ogre. I don't let those kind of jokes ever die. So that team is now known as the Ogre Den. Jason is Big Ogre Hardy. Aaron is Tall Ogre Green. And somehow I got stuck with Donkey. I don't know how that happened. So that's our team. The Map Ogre is a request that I had put in this year for a GIS technician. I think long-term, that is a very important position that supports a number of departments. Cody was very supportive of getting that person. Right now, Pat and I pretty much run the GIS system, which is not efficient because we've got bigger things to do. But it is becoming something that we all rely on in our day-to-day activities, including the asset management program that does need to be maintained long-term by a GIS technician. That didn't make it, and that's fine. We'll get through this by 8 a.m., but that is something that I'll be bringing back forward in the future should we have more sustainable revenue sources. And then they're not actually ogres. I view them as heroes. And they're not the heroes that we deserve. They're the heroes that we need. So that's them Halloween 2 years ago as Batman and Punisher. Any questions?
Pre-COVID picture.
Pre-COVID picture, yes, thank you. 2 years ago, in fact. Questions, or are you all just glazed over with tech talk?
I think that's a group wow you're getting there, mouths open. Great job. And really, I see this every day with this IT team. Although they're in the Ogre Den, they are doing, or at working virtually, they get so much done. And when I'm on these meetings with AWC partners around the state, and there are cities our size and larger who are shut down for 3 days at a time because their IT systems just melted down and they don't have the type of professional capacity within their city. I feel for them and feel proud about what our team has been able to do. They kept us up, kept us mobile, and we really appreciate them.
Yes, agree. Right.
No more further. Any questions for Grant or the other Grant? All right, Heidi, then you have the closer tonight on what's happening with the finance department.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Foster. Definitely want to give a big shout out to the IT team and Grant's team in general. They're very supportive, and a lot of the stuff that we do in the finance department would be very difficult without their support. So our finance team consists of myself and Michael Malik. He is our financial analyst, and Kim Rocker. She is our accounting assistant. Two very dedicated, hardworking people who I am also very proud to work with. We have a mission and a vision. Our mission is to protect the assets of the city. That's our job. We want to make sure that everything is where it should be, nothing goes missing, that things are categorized correctly. We want to provide accurate information and transparent financials. Our vision is to be the best run government, and we work towards that every day. We got quite a few responsibilities. Like the IT team, my team touches nearly every aspect of what goes on in the city of Yelm at some point. We do the financial reporting, obviously the budget. We monitor and take care of the outstanding debt, invest the city's funds, and monitor and enforce internal controls. It's very important that we make sure all of our transactions are recorded properly. It can skew the numbers if they're not, and so we do keep a very close eye on that. We do payroll, accounts payable, business license, and business occupation tax collection. We, like the IT team, have been working very hard this year, and looking back, sometimes it's hard to see how far you've gone until you look back, but there's many things that we have done. One thing that we're proud of, I'm particularly proud of, is the clean audit that we received for the 2008 financial statements and accountability audit. A lot of hard work went into that, and looking forward to future clean audits. We implemented, in conjunction with the IT team, our B&O online utility reporting and payment portal, so businesses can now file online and also pay online. That is true. We have for other areas as well. We have payment options for our utilities. We've had that for a little while, but we have also added payments for pretty much anything else that goes on in the city, permitting all of those other types of fees. This year, we were able to refinance our water revenue bonds. We just did that last month, and we saved $2.5 million over 20 years, which is very nice. Very nice. We don't have to pay that to debt, and we can use it for other things. We've been working really hard to do routine things routinely in the finance department. That's really what makes a finance department run smoothly, is we want to keep our thumb on all of the different things that need to be done daily, monthly, and annually, so they don't compound. So if there is something that looks like an irregularity, we can research it promptly and take care of it, get it categorized in its proper thing, figure out what happened. And so just establishing those processes that keep the machine rolling it's a huge accomplishment, and that we're very proud of. Also this year, we partnered with the schools, and we also offered a money one-on-one class. I know that Michael Malik, he went and he participated in the school activity where real life training or for a day, and he helped people learn about balancing their checkbook, help students learn about balancing their checkbook and kind of real life situations and scenarios. He really enjoyed that. We also are surviving COVID. We transitioned to working remotely. My team works about 75% remotely, and I work about 10 to 25% remotely. And in conjunction with that, we have digitalized all of our filings, so we will all have access to the files that we need away from the desk. So we're away from paper for most things, and digital, it's in our Laserfish repository, so we can access it when we need it, and so can other departments. Kim was really a rock star here when she distributed the 2 rounds of the COVID business grants. That was a huge amount of work, and she handled it with grace and accuracy, and she really did an outstanding job in pulling that data together, vetting out the businesses, keeping track of it, following up with businesses, helping the businesses to get what they need to actually qualify. She really deserves a shout out for that. The budget that we're under right now, the 2019-2020 budget, was awarded the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and that is a goal that we're still striving for with this upcoming budget as well. Another thing that we did was we brought all of our current vendors, their W-9s up to date. Sometimes keep those and they get a little bit old, but we're really supposed to get new ones every so often. So our goals going forward is just to continue to provide accurate, timely financial information that you and the management team can use to make good decisions. We also I want to continue developing and working with the finance committee on all financial matters, having the education part and the informative part, so you really understand how the city runs. We also need to prepare because we are coming up on 10,000, and we need to be in a position to understand what needs to happen and how to handle a population over 10,000, particularly for the property tax, but there are other regulations as well. One of our big goals is to utilize technology efficiently. So we want to be able to streamline our processes and continue to use everything and go digitally. The digital format really does help us with that. It's easy for people who want to do stuff online. They don't necessarily need to make a special trip into the city. They can access many of our services and many of the reporting requirements right through the website. We also have the goal of developing a business and occupation and utility tax enforcement plan, just to keep things consistent and help businesses who may not be filing in a timely file. It's more of a bringing people along than a punishment enforcement effort. We still are in the
We'll call it an encouragement plan, Heidi. How's that?
encouragement plan. I like that. And we're monitoring. I mean, we're still in uncertain times with COVID, so we need to make sure that we monitor the trends and we are adjusting course as needed. We're working to develop a citywide tracking system, basically using our software bias to kind of be a one-stop place where we can track our contracts and all the details that go with that, and then all the transactions associated with those, and make tracking those and knowing about those and reporting on those very simple. We are also in the process of developing a review process for all of our vendors. We just want to make sure, hey, we have a current contract, we're actually utilizing all of the services that we're paying for, we're getting a good price, and make sure that people who have account access are the right people and that there's no loss provision opportunities. Part of our internal controls. And so that's pretty much finances in a nutshell. Good financials or boring financials. You just keep the machine rolling and keep the monitoring the transactions, doing the daily things daily, which then turn into monthly and annual things to make the reporting up to date, timely, and accurate. Does anybody have any questions about the finance department? You're still muted, Mayor.
I was hoping that you'd be practicing your lip reading skills. So it looks like there's no hands, either virtual or little blue ones up. So it must be a great presentation. Thank you, Heidi, for your continued work. You've been very busy and appreciate your time. And so, Council, that takes us to the end of our presentations tonight. With no further questions, we're going to go right into old business. Oh, wait, we're done. There is no old business. So let's go right into department updates, starting out with Mr. Graham.
Let's see. How about now? Nope.
I can hear you, can't see you.
There we go. We made it. Good evening, council. How's everyone doing? I will keep my comments brief, just the way that EJ likes them. I do want to highlight a couple of things for you. We did send in our CARES Act submission, so that's really positive news. They acknowledged that they received it on time, and we're just working out a couple more details. That's one of the things that they want, is a real detailed report. We'll be sending that in and then receiving the money. It's a really positive thing for us and for council. And, it allows you guys to have allocated the money the way that you did, and we will get reimbursed for it. And there's been no issues identified. So that's real positive. I'll continue to keep you posted. Veterans Day is tomorrow. Just want to remind everyone that city offices are closed. And even though it's a day off, it is a day on to honor everyone that has served. And I know the mayor wants to give some special call outs, and so I will leave that to him. But just wanted to remind everyone that's listening at home that the city is closed tomorrow. Grant touched on the Joint Water Resource Mitigation Task Force meeting that happened today. One of the things I just wanted to share with you all is, we're in the draft part of this conversation with ecology. We're getting feedback from them once we know what the next steps and timing are more specifically, and their feedback will provide a work session with you. It most likely will be in the early of next year. And then just to give perspective for the larger part of the conversation that will happen with them, we will be the first pilot project, first of 5, to submit our pilot project for their consideration. And as of right now, they're planning on not being able to really get back to us with a formal review and analysis and public comment until summer, maybe even late fall or the end of the year, depending on if and when some of those other pilot projects make their submittals. So they don't know, but we're looking at realistically a year-long process with ecology for our water rights. And we'll be giving you an update around the first of the year next year. Last thing, just in case folks didn't see this, there were 62 new confirmed COVID cases. We've been watching, and they've been around 20, 30 a day. There was a significant jump at 62 confirmed cases today, and just wanted to encourage everyone as you go out in the world, just take care, wear a mask, wash your hands, and be safe, because it's getting worse, and we all have a role to play to keep each other safe and healthy. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Very comprehensive. Thank you, Michael. We'll move on to council members, and I'll note that Councilmember Blair did join the meeting at 6:21 p.m. Lori, if you'll reflect that in the minutes. Councilmember Blair, do you have anything for council?
Nothing. I don't have anything new over this last week. Again, the SWAC meeting was canceled this month, and then the only thing is coming up on Thursday for the Finance Committee, which I'm sure will be a long one.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carmody?
Yeah, hi. So, since our study session got moved to Wednesday last week, I did miss the intercity transit meeting. They didn't do a whole lot. It was a lot of review of different proposals, stuff like that. I'm trying to think. Finance Committee this Thursday. I think also Public Works this Thursday. I think so. Yeah. Happy Veterans Day. Let's all take a moment to remember our veterans and get your flu shots. I got my flu shot and my shingles shot today, so my arm's a little sore. But don't forget, guys, it's really important this year especially. And that's all I got.
You're not old enough for a shingle shot. What's with that?
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, that one hurts, but it's worth it, because having seen people with shingles, you don't want that.
Yeah, my dad had shingles and he was in pain. It was very, very painful. So yeah, everybody get your flu shots and your shingle shots as soon as you can. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Curry? You're muted.
I forgot. The senior center has their new kitchen equipment is all installed, and that's a big shout out to Senator Becker, who got us the grant through the Department of Commerce. The Fall Bazaar was a big success. They're having a turkey trot for frozen turkeys this coming Thursday. Their Thanksgiving dinner is on the 19th, and they will be closed Thanksgiving Day and the Friday after Thanksgiving. Southeast Thurston Fire Authority is going to run a replacement levy next year during the primary election. And I attended, along with a lot of people, the Catholic Church's annual fall festival and auction last Saturday night. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Stillwell.
I had one meeting Thursday that I could not attend due to other obligations, and I have no report.
All right. Councilmember Wood.
I have a, let's see, how's this going to go this week? I've got Transportation Policy Board in the morning, tomorrow morning, and then my TCOM meeting has been moved from last Wednesday to this Thursday. So day after tomorrow, I have TCOM. So I'll keep it, I believe, to be a joint meeting. I will keep the council apprised.
Tracy, are you sure about your TPB meeting being tomorrow on Veterans Day?
I'll verify that before I show up for a Zoom meeting by myself.
It's actually here. I just pulled it up. Your TPB meeting is November 18th. So you get the morning off.
All right, sounds great to me.
At least you wouldn't have driven up there. You would have you would have Zoomed up there. So yeah, you should have an email from Erlina that tells you about the updated change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember DePino.
Thank you, Mayor. Had a community development and economic development meeting. And it was basically to go over the presentation that we had tonight. And there's one thing that I did want to kind of urge council and kind of congratulate you on. Thank you for putting in that mitigation for the pocket gophers. I think it's really important. You know, I'm very cautious about how we spend our money. I do think this is a good thing to use our resources on. I think, you know, the 900,000, it's going in grant form, and then the 300,000 in local match money. That 300,000 over the next 2 years, it's well worth it in my opinion. It not only helps developers, but it helps our businesses and our economy grow here in Yelm. It gives them the tools they need to be successful, and I do think it's very valuable that that you included that in your proposed budget. So thank you for that. There was also an EDC meeting I attended. We talked about a lot of different things, including the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. It's a program, the PTAC. It's a program for the Thurston EDC. It's a statewide program, also funded in majority by the U.S. Department of Defense, actually. And the EDC has a 2-year contract to provide services throughout the entire state. And if you want to know more, let me know. But basically, it's a good thing for this community, and especially impacting the about 1,400 jobs in the region, and hundreds, or not hundreds of millions, but almost 100 million. I think it's like $72 million worth of money pumped into the local South Sound economy. Other than that, we have an Innovation Forecast Expo coming up on December 3rd. It's going to be a virtual conference this year. The development on this conference is going to be focused around economic development leadership that has innovatively led the state in this region, particularly through this economic disruption due to COVID-19. Other than that, just want to say thank you to all those veterans who have served, and especially those that live in here in Yelm, including Councilmember Carmody, Stillwell, and Mayor Foster. So thank you all for your service to this country. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. Councilmember Kaminsky.
I attended EDC, and we basically went over the program that Grant just gave us. I am particularly interested in the parcel of land at the corner of Third and Yelm, which was a previously tabled discussion regarding either the possible acquisition or possible donation of that piece and how it might fit into the corridor plan that we want to do, the big overall plan. So I did a lot of off-site work with Tammy, and we've agreed that we'll wait for the stakeholders meeting to occur and open it up to the public, and then we will invite that property owner to maybe help in planning with a really great, suitable, beautiful thing to do with that property, should it still be available to us. And then the other thing is Bounty for Families is having their annual gift of gobble. I think there's still time to donate $60 if you would like to provide a full organic meal to be cooked by a family. Food goes a long way that way. I'll see if it can be posted on the city website, and we will be donating, packaging and handing out the meals November 23rd. So it's a really fun annual and very important thing that they do. That's
In
it.
fact, the city's partnering with you on that as far as using the community center for the distribution site for those families.
Yeah, it works fantastically.
There's a fundraiser coming up for that. I think we are posting that on our site if we haven't already.
Great, great.
Terry, do you know off the top of your head how many families are benefit from that program?
It's usually about 120 per year. And we usually raise about $6,000. And I know their goal was to do 9,000 this year.
Amazing.
So it's just a very rewarding thing. It's great.
Great work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. The week of November, this past week. Continued work on reviewing the department presentations to council on budget. Of course, I attended the Best of Nisqually Gala. Nice to see that Yelm City Park was voted as best destination and best park. People are very proud of their community. We also see on the 6th, I went to the TRPC meeting that I chaired, and we reviewed some of our upcoming work for 21, which include continued work on high capacity transportation and smart corridors, regional housing concerns, and they are presenting an ask to the legislature on behalf of South County on a number of projects, including our 2nd Street improvement package identified through our downtown corridor study. That's about $700,000 ask, and we'll see if the TRPC lobbyists are able to help us acquire that. Speaking of that, we have scheduled time at the December study session for council to discuss our legislative priorities. We'll need to come to some consensus on that, and then we should vote on that so that we're all speaking from the same sheet of paper here. Of course, TRPC has identified several areas of emphasis: transportation from the I-5 improvements to the roundabouts east of Yelm on 507, which have become a regionally significant project. It's not just us, it's TRPC, it's the military community, it's our legislators all realize that this is the next step after the 510 loop completion if we're going to ease the congestion on the only other north-south route on this side of the mountains. So that's going to get some more traction, hopefully. The TRPC lobby team will also be asking the legislature for support on child care programs, access to broadband for families to help with education, mental health and addiction programs, funding of land for habitat conservation plans, which might be helpful to us, and of course, preserving or even increasing cities' shares of the shared revenues that we're supposed to get from like alcohol and cannabis sales in the state. Also, I attended the Regional Housing Council. I'm on the funding work group for that, and that group has been tasked with the fairly difficult task of finding which projects fit into what bucket of funding that's available for homeless services, federal affordable homes, human services, and 1406 money. Each fund has different parameters and requirements, and the funding work group will be making recommendations to the Housing Council on how to prioritize those projects as they come in. And then today, joined the Yelm Chamber of Commerce, whose presentation was a focus on the challenges our nonprofits have. during these interesting times, and how they're trying to meet the community's needs with fundraising, and they all have about the same issues. But as we've seen, like what Terry's talking about, our community keeps stepping up and supporting people who have needs greater than their own. We appreciate that. And then lastly, as has been mentioned, thank you to all those who have served and who are still serving, Tat, and others. And you'll notice when you drive by City Park today and tomorrow, our Public Works team did a fantastic job of putting the flags back up. Our display flags couldn't go up last year because we didn't have a fence to put them in during the splash pad and playground renovation. It's a really patriotic and inspiring display of flags. They did a great job of putting them up. So take a trip by there, and there will be a very small and socially distanced Veterans Day celebration at the flagpole at noon tomorrow for those who wish to attend. And that's all I have. I want to thank staff for their work this week, and I want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day, and I would entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Thank you, staff.
Aye.
Thank you, James.